So you've decided to come back to chapter 3 of The Seamstress and the Tinker. Good choice. Chapter 3, The Refusal of the Call. Now this is where it all starts to happen. We know things have been going a little bit out of whack. Dan is an Arnaurat and the Tinker's upset. The cups have all broken, he can't tinker them back together. The seamstress can't have a coffee, the tinker can't have a tea, and no one can have a ginger beer. And I suppose we should just get the rubbish literature out of the way. And get around to reading The Seamstress and the Tinker. Here it is. The Seamstress and the Tinker. Chapter 3, Refusal of the Call. Episode 1. As one would expect, we start this chapter with our good friend Tinker at home in his shed. I'm sure you can understand his frustration with attempting to repair the broken mugs. All I want is a cup of tea, he muttered to himself, as another mug collapsed on his workbench. He had tried nuts, bolts, screws, rivets, string, chain, cyanoacrylate acetate, polyvinyl acetate, anything he could think of. He tried, spurred on by his need for a cup of tea and the seamstress' need for her morning coffee. He stepped back, leaning on one leg, and absent-mindedly reached for his mallet. He touched it to his forehead. Then, in one swift motion, he brought it down hard on the remains of the latest mug. Then he crudely swept the pieces onto the floor. He stood there for some time, lost. Just lost. Someone around here needs to do something about this, he muttered. Too bad I'm too busy. He looked over at the stockpile of jobs he had put on hold while he concentrated on repairing the mugs. Tinker in his own way was superstitious. He had his ways about him. Some would call them quirks, although they were not quirks at all. Tinker prided himself on being quirkless. He would carry salt with him when he adventured, but he didn't use it on meals. He would be sure to conceal iron and silver on his person when he left St. Arnaurat, even for the briefest moment, and he would borrow acorns from seamstress when he saw things which weren't meant to be seen. Tinker, being Tinker, like no one else, had lost interest in breaking mugs either by accident or by design, and as such, to clear his mind, had gone for a walk. At some point, he had thought about dropping into the Courier's Arms, or breakfasting with seamstress, or avoiding the town square, or many other things. He tripped on his shoelace, which jerked him back to a sense of reality. Something sharp stuck into his leg, pulling him further into reality. He found himself surrounded by an old and familiar smell. Something he hadn't sensed since before the story began. He looked around and found himself standing outside the potter's workshop, and by the smell he could tell that the kin was blazing. And here is a picture of Tinker walking down the potter's garden path. Curious, Tinker walked down the potter's garden path, lined haphazardly with fragments of broken pottery. The path was longer than Tinker's and wound its way behind Potter's house. Tinker failed to notice a shadow creeping up 2 steps behind him. Potter's workshop was larger than Tinker's, made from mud brick, with windows facing in all directions. Part of it was fenced off for his gallery. Part of it was his studio.